The NRL has hosted its very first Close the Gap Indigenous Forum, with esteemed guests joining a panel at Rugby League's Heroes to Legends Museum to discuss issues facing Aboriginal Australia. Aboriginal activist Paul Coe, 2013 World Champion Jillaroo Julie Young, co-chair of the National Congress Kirstie Parker, writer LARISSA BEHRENDT, businessman KOORI and Aboriginal media personality ALEC DOOMADGEE took part in a traditional Aboriginal smoking ceremony out the front of Rugby League Central before taking part in the session. The panel then shared their thoughts on the challenges faced by Aboriginal people and their communities in the past relating to culture, education, welfare and closing the gap.
Some of the things we discussed was, I suppose, some of the issues that is faced in Indigenous communities, some of the issues that some of the Indigenous players within the NRL, I suppose, have to deal with on a daily basis, and how to best cope with that.
I think one of the challenges the Close the Gap campaign continues to throw up is that it's not just enough to close the gap socio-economically. We have to ensure that Indigenous cultures and communities remain strong and vibrant, and for me that's always seemed to be the missing aspect of the Close the Gap.
I guess the key word that I would say to any of the young people out there listening today is essentially this. You have to know who you are and what you want out of life, and you have to be prepared to make the necessary sacrifices yourself in order to make that image that you have in your mind a living reality.
I think we're at an important time as a community, as we're dealing with all these challenges, to start recasting our identity.
Indigenous players make up 12% of the NRL, they make up 25% of our State of Origin stars and 35% of the Aussie Kangaroos. DOOMADGEE says that makes Rugby League the perfect vehicle for spreading important messages to the wider community.
We can use the NRL as a platform, because the NRL is such a popular sport, not just in New South Wales but in Australia as a whole. I mean, there's a good platform there to open the eyes up of mainstream Australia, of Australian society in general, to actually show them exactly what Indigenous heritage and Indigenous culture is about and what it is, what it represents.
Forum Compare, the NRL's Indigenous Welfare and Education Officer, Dean WIDDERS, says the event was a huge success.
There's a real need for Indigenous Australians to reconnect to their culture. I think that's a really important thing, and also for other Australians to embrace Indigenous culture as part of their own. Living in a country where Indigenous people have been for a long time, and we want to share our culture with non-Indigenous Australians. So I think that were the two positive things for me, and also learn about different ways that we can positively address the gap in Indigenous education and health and employment. And best ways we can do that, and getting together and talking is always the best way to try and come up with solutions.
AMIE LINDSELL, NRL News.